You're listening to Art Affairs, episode 83. And on this special 4-year anniversary episode, I'll be talking to Rob Jones. Alright, so my name is Michael Faith, and this is Art Affairs. Art Affairs is my attempt at shining a spotlight on the many wonderful people that make up this amazing art community, featuring conversations with artists, gallerists, curators, telling their stories. You can dig through previous episodes, complete with show notes, at artaffairs.podcast.com, but the best way to stay plugged in is to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. And if you're really enjoying the show and want to help support what I'm doing here in an even bigger way, check out the Art Affairs Patreon. Not only does it give you an opportunity to help keep the show going, but there are several community-oriented benefits as well, like getting early access to episodes and suggesting questions for upcoming guests. You can find all the information about that at patreon.com/artaffairs. You can also connect with the show on Instagram at Art Affairs Podcast. All right, so today's guest is artist and creative director Rob Jones. Rob is probably most well known for the decades of work that he's done for Jack White and Jack's various projects. From posters to packaging design, even organizing the other artists that do posters for Jack's show. Dude even won a Grammy at one point. And on the completely other side of his career, Rob's long acted as creative director for a couple pretty well-known companies. For almost 20 years, he worked as creative director for Mondo, once the movie poster arm of Alamo Drafthouse, and recently stepped into the executive creative director role at Vinyl Me Please. We talk about all this and more on the special 4-year anniversary episode. So I hope you enjoy my conversation with Rob Jones. Rob, welcome to the show, man. It's so good to have you on. I'm excited we could do this.
Thank you very much for having me. It is a true honor. I've really enjoyed listening to all the Art Affairs interviews. Just to compliment you, did really good stuff.
Awesome. No, and this is the 4-year anniversary too, so truly honored to have you on. So listeners of the show probably, and if you listen, you might know this, I do a lot of research on the guests that I have on. And the one place that I always start is with the artist's own bio on their website, which, oh my God, if nobody's read yours, it's an adventure. I was so confused, like when I started reading it, and right from the start, I kind of came to the conclusion that you probably just like made it all up, which that in and of itself was going to be super impressive. But then I found out a little bit later that it was actually Lenny Bruce's bio, and you've just like swapped your name in. So,
yeah, I didn't really have that great of a life, so I figured he's got a very interesting life. So just use that. So if people want to read a bio, then if that's really what they want to read, then here you go. Here's a great one.
Yeah, it definitely threw me off for a little bit. I was like, he's 100 years old.
Yeah, I've had some people get confused by it too. They seriously think all their artwork was made by a dead 100-year-old man from Long Island. So, but no, I'm quite breathing, unlike poor Lenny, unfortunately.
So where did you grow up? I mean, I think you kind of spent some time in a couple different places, Georgia, Waco, stuff like that. Did you move around a lot?
Yeah, I was born in Albany, Georgia. And before I was a year old, we shipped off to Waco. My dad got a job at the M&M Mars. Nope, take it back. At Albany, he was working at Procter & Gamble, and then he started working for M&M Mars and got shifted over to their Waco plant. And that's where I grew up until 6th grade. And then we moved to Cleveland, Tennessee. No offense, but I gotta say, if you don't like Cleveland, Ohio, there's a worse Cleveland out there. I gotta tell you, watch out. But it's not. It's nice enough. Then we moved back to Albany, Georgia, and that's where I spent the rest of my adolescence.
So when you think of like your childhood, like what place do you remember the most? What left the greatest impression on you?
I've thought about it's funny you asked that. Like I've thought about that. Do I consider what Grand Falloon do I consider myself associated with, Georgia or Texas? Because I've been in Texas. I've lived in Texas more than anywhere else in my entire life. Like right now, at least 24 years with Ginny. So before that, another 10, 12 when I was a kid. But I don't know. I think Georgia, that's when I was, figuring out things. My friends and I were just trying to figure out what our identities were. So they probably had the biggest influence.
And you mentioned your dad's work. Did your mom do anything creative, or did any of your family do anything creative?
My dad can paint. My dad,
okay, he's
about like me. He can pretty much do anything he wants. He could do and probably do it perfectly. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I mean, if I put my mind to it, I figure I can do about anything decently well. Art was the thing I was like, ooh, I'm really good at this. I should stick with this. But my dad, he's an engineer, but he always had like an artistic side. If I asked him to draw me something when I was a kid, he could draw like a likeness. He could draw a face pretty quickly. He drew Alec Guinness for me one time.
And were they supportive of your interest in art?
Oh, God, no. He was an engineer, yeah. So he was an engineer. My mom grew up in Kentucky. Actually, both sides of my family come from Kentucky, but my granddad moved to Florida looking for work back in the day. But my mom was like, I've been poor. Don't be an artist. It's not sexy, seriously. And my dad was like, what she said. This is a bad idea, Jeans. You need to go to school, study something that they want to pay you for, and then do that. They're going to want your brain, not your artwork. Jeez. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me see your artwork again. I'm like, here you go. He's like, a rat with, what are these? Wolverine claws. Yeah. You should really stick to school, man. I'm not kidding. I don't think this is going to really do well for you. And I listened. I think that actually in a weird way, it really helped. Actually helped my art career because I ended up putting so much effort into studying. I tried to become what they wanted, which was a doctor.
Okay.
It was like, if you ever heard any Immigrant Experience stand-up comedy, same thing. Like A minus, what the hell is this kind of reactions? Like I got a C once. It was for band. And I was terrified. It's not like they were like yelling at me or hitting me or anything. I mean, they were like beautiful parents, but I was just scared because it was the first time I'd just failed. So, a B maybe, but a C, good Lord, that was just so incomprehensible. And I remember I started hiding behind I hid behind a chair. This is like 5th grade, 6th grade. And I was just, before my dad would get home. My dad was like, going to not get home till like 5. So I started hiding at 3:30. And of course, my dad got home. He's like, "What? It's band. Who cares?"
Right.
Are you going to pursue this? I'm like, no. He's like, "Yeah. Well, then don't worry if you're not great at baritone. That's not going to keep you out of college."
Yeah. So I'd read that you were going to go into pre-med. So what kind of doctor were you planning to be?
Dermatology.
Okay.
I had a really good experience with the dermatologist growing up, Dr. Armand Cognetta. It sounds like a spy name. It's such a beautiful, perfect name. But this guy was just really amazing. Dermatologist. He was one of the guys that was pioneering how to find tumors with dogs. With dogs being able to smell tumors before, they couldn't test. So that dog would smell over your body and find the tumor. He's one of those dudes. He also has a really weird, huge collection of Florida maps.
Is he from Florida?
Yeah, his practice is in Florida. He gave me a real straightforward talking to. He's like, I followed him around for a day, and then at the end of the day, I was in his office, and he's like, check it out. I work all the time. I got a family. I can make sure they're taken care of, and they get anything they want, but at the same time, I'm working all the time. Mm. So you really got to decide if you want to do this kind of work. It's demanding. If you want to be bad at it, then no worries. You can just, goof off. And I was like, yeah, what do I? He's like, oh, then it doesn't stop. You will always have to be studying. You'll always have to be on the cutting edge. Everything he said basically just sounded to me like, because I'm also, I'm industrious, but at the same time, I'm inherently lazy. So everything he said just sounded like the whole, it's 8 years of medical school. I was like, oh my God, that sounds like so much. Looking back, 8 years is nothing.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was scared of.
So then you ultimately went into to become an English major, right? So how did you go from dermatology to English?
By gradually lowering my parents' expectations. I told them, I also was the thing, I was getting the best grades. I could walk into English class and have to take notes. And then within about 3 assignments, I could figure out what the professor wanted. Did they want something original, or did they want something that was just parroted back from class? And once I figured out which way they're going, it was, easy to get an A. But and it was fun. It was just, for your life to read Moby Dick and write about it. And by the end of it, though, I realized I would just be solving other people's puzzles. And I saw some folks enjoy that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not downplaying it. But I was looking at the professors that I admired and what they were doing, with their professional lives. And it just seemed like they were trying to figure out what another person did. And the other person could say right out, hey, here's what I was doing. But they were like, shh, the game is I don't tell you, and y'all all got to figure out for the rest of your lives. Here you go.
That's crazy. So you get to the end of your bachelor's degree, you kind of figure out, hey, this is not really what I want to do. Was that, how did that feel? Was there a sense of like being lost, just not knowing where to go next?
Yes.
Or did you kind of have a sense of because you went to Savannah, like art college after that. Did you finally convince your parents to let you pursue art?
My dad tried to get me on last shot, tried to get me to go to business school. And I happened to ask for, this is weird, I should have learned this, but I asked for a professor I had for a recommendation. And he could tell, he knew me well enough that was a terrible idea. So I found out later through a friend of my dad's that was on the board at this school I was applying to, that they had seen the recommendation. Said, by the way, this professor wrote a terrible recommendation. Said, do not let this guy in. Not a business guy. And that was right. I later on, I actually sent him some nice candy as a thank you. But I went to Savannah College of Art and Design just for a minute trying to figure it out. While I was in college, I had an internship at Backer, Spielvogel, and Bates. And I was there as an art director intern. I actually it was kind of weird. There's a really terrible movie called Soul Man. But C. Thomas Howell has to meet the person whose place he took, whose scholarship he took. I had to meet the person apparently whose place I took. He was there, but in another capacity. And he couldn't figure, he's like, how did you get this? I'm at University of Texas studying advertising. What are you studying? I'm like, English. And he's like, and you're an art director? I'm like, uh-huh. He's like, uh-huh. Okay. They said, yeah, it was complete. Just my dad knew a guy. Oh boy, to be clear, I was really good because I got in there. I was supposed to be just kind of helping somebody. What happened was they had a copywriter, Stacy Parks, and she was didn't have art director yet. So they said, until we suss one out and hire one, let's just give her this kid and he can work with her on stuff. And we had this campaign for Fruitables gum. It was a gum with some juice in the middle. I don't know. And I did storyboards of a cartoon approach, of animated approach. We sold it, and then I had to leave. Summer was up, so Stacy went over to England with the animation studio and supervised the commercial with my storyboards. But the point was, I was there as an intern. I walked out with, or I had a reel, or I had like a 30-second commercial. I had my name on it, and I think we sold one print ad. Yeah.
So how did you find out about? How did you?
So that was what I could point out. I was like, hey, I'm good at this. And my dad's friend is like, yeah, he's pretty good at this. You maybe should consider going into advertising. And I was like, is it kind of like art? He's like, it's like art, except you can make money. I went, oh, perfect. I'll avoid that starving thing they kept warning me about. So I went to advertising school while I was at Savannah College of Art and Design. I was just waiting for see if I get accepted. Got accepted. It was pretty easy, obviously. At the time, it was the most prestigious advertising program to get into. So I was really trying hard, but it was easy because I kind of had a reel already. So I got in, and then slowly over time, I realized, especially by talking to other folks who are in the business, that the adage is that you spend all this time to make a very creative book, to make a book that's really unique, really has a voice of advertising. And then you send it off, and you get hired on the strength of that, and then you never get to do anything that engaging or creative again. You're basically, unless you're just are a superstar, but usually you're going to be doing diaper ads. You're going to be doing H&R Block ads. That's one of the things too. When you make your ad book, they expect you to choose hard products to advertise. I actually had a buddy, Sean Thompson. He ended up like running the whole program at UT eventually, the creative advertising program. But he had a H&R Block ad in his thing. It was really impressive. He had like 3 hit-old series. It was perfect. It communicated, hey, frustrated at taxes? Call us. Kind of stuff, yeah.
So how did you end up at UT? Because you were doing the degree at Savannah. I think you got your master's from UT. How did you end up there?
That was where you're supposed to. I was, like you said, I was lost, and advertising seemed like a good place to go. So I was at SCAD until I got in. I thought I was going to be an advertiser. Then after I got out of UT, I was like, oof. I had that again, further lowering my parents' expectations of me. And at this point, I'm getting kind of long in the tooth. So they're like, dude, you need to figure out your life. I was like, okay, I got one more idea. And if this fails, I promise I'll figure it out. I'm going to try to be a gig poster artist. And they're like, oh, is this more of those rats with Wolverine claws? I'm like, actually, yes.
This is the idea that's going to convince us?
Yeah. I said, here's what I want to do. I'm going to try to do this for about 2 years. I can do side work and advertise. I was getting like storyboard work from some local agencies. There was an agency in San Antonio that hired me a lot, and that was basically paid the bills. And I kept doing gig posters. Did it with local bands, expecting that my work was going to be so great that people would hear about it across the nation and want to hire me. And that did not work out. That did not happen. So I was like, shoot, what do I do? And I asked my good friend Jeff Pavito. I was like, hey, how do you work for bands people have heard of? He goes, write the club. So he basically laid out the Kozik initiative. Write the club, say you'll give them 50 posters and you're going to sell 50 yourself or 100, whatever. And I did that. My first one doing that was the Cramps, I believe. And my second was White Stripes. And
that's what took off.
Then I was able to go, hey, Pop, guess what? I made it underneath a year. I got some more jobs.
And so when you were first getting your start, from what I understand, there was a guy named Dirty Steve, which what a great name, Dirty Steve, from Austin, from a band called the Pink Swords. Was that the local bands that you were talking about as far as getting your start in gig posters?
I'm having lunch with Dirty Steve on Monday here in New York City. He what's to small Dirty Steve sidebar. He was in Austin. His house burned up.
Oh my God.
And he was doing data entry, and all the people at work were like, you're amazing at this job. And we all heard about what happened and we feel terrible. So the entire office took a collection up, and, it was like $7,000 to help you get started. He's like, wow, this is amazing. Thank you so much. I quit. I'm moving to New York. This is the exact amount of money I kind of needed to pick up stakes. Like, no, we gave it so you'd stay. He's like, yeah, no, I understand what you're intending to do for my life, but I got different ones. Thank you. And I'll send you a postcard. And then he came over here and started Human Head Records, which, according to all reports, is the best record store in New York. So
amazing.
Yeah, he pulled it off.
That's awesome. So did your experience in advertising school, did that help you in any way in the gig posters jobs that you started out?
Oh, definitely. Oh yeah, I learned all the dirty tricks, and I was able to apply it to fun stuff instead of, heart medication. Yeah, definitely I had really great instructors, basically teach me, fundamentals of layout, and not so much Photoshop. Our Photoshop instruction was 30 minutes where they showed us how to use the rubber stamp tool, and that was it. That's all I've gotten. Again, inherently lazy. Well, that was enough for me. So at this point, I still didn't know how to use channels. I'm not quite sure what that is. I felt better that Alan Hines said, yeah, me either. I'm like, really? Oh, good. Everyone keeps saying it like it's just supposed to be expected. Jeez. But anyway, I don't know. Advertising, it gave me an insight, I think. Definitely. I mean, in the end of the day, that's what gig posters were. That's what even the alternative movie posters were. It's a different form of advertising. For Mondo, it was a means of getting people almost to pay for the advertising.
Right.
Otherwise, it wasn't valued.
And so you mentioned the White Stripes and how you connected with them originally with this sort of grassroots, I'm going to write the venues and just put feelers out. How did that become you being like a stable member of the art for the White Stripes and then ultimately Jack?
did the first poster, and the poster was it's about the only poster I've ever done where I had the idea like in a snap. It was in my head exactly what it was supposed to look like. I did it. It only took me about 2 hours, 3 hours maybe. So, which has not happened again ever. But the end result looked exactly like what was in my head. I've rarely ever had that happen. So sent it off, and then I included some business cards in the box, and I got a call on the day of the show. The show was in Lyon, France. So I got a call early in the morning, and it was the road manager, John Baker, and he said, "Hey, it's John Baker. I'm looking at these posters you sent." I'm like, "Oh, do you like them?" He's like, "Yeah, who gave?" And he started lighting into me, basically saying, "Who gave you the permission? This is, you can't, you're not allowed to do this. White Stripes own the whole 9 yards." And I was freaking out, going, "Jeff didn't say this was going to happen." And then at the very end, he's like, "But everyone loves this poster a lot, so we would like to try to make this our tour poster for the American leg of the tour." I was like, "Oh my goodness, this is amazing." And then the lawyer heard about this, Stacy, and she's like, "Hey, I just got the White Stripes out of a problem with Citizen Kane and all this rigmarole. And I'm sorry, do you have permission to even use Orson Welles? No, forget about this. Make another poster." So I came up with, I said, "I have an idea." I did 4 posters very quickly, 4 ideas over in a weekend,
Wow.
for 4 dates, and they all got approved. And then Jack broke his finger and was out of commission for a minute. I then trashed those 4 posters. Well, I did. I just wanted to show them how fast I could work, but I knew I could do better than that. And to me, that wasn't, here's the thing. Like I said, I'm inherently lazy, but I'll be industrious if it's towards making sure things are perfect. I don't want someone thinking I did a bad job. So I trashed them, did 4 more, and those 4 were the first 4 I did after that Citizen Kane poster, including the 2 at the Greek, I believe, in LA. The big blow-ups of Jack's and Meg's face, with Jack's mouth with the bird over it.
Right.
That was me trying to imitate Criterion covers at the time, which was a big influence.
And so how did that become you being the guy?
Oh, I'm sorry. So I did that, and Jack liked those 4 posters. And then he's like, "You know what? Let's have this guy do a poster for every date that's left on the Elephant Tour." And even that wasn't, I didn't do all those. The merch manager's like, "That's a lot of posters. Let's just do, however many." So we did the important dates, and then, or the big dates. They're all important, of course, but did the big dates. And then after that, I got asked to do Under Blackpool Lights, the first White Stripes DVD. And also at the same time, concurrently, I got asked to do the White Stripes single for Jolene. That was the first time I got asked to do
Nice
records. So it's my first record, seriously. I was quite freaked out.
And what was that experience? I mean, did you approach that differently than you approach poster work?
I was trying to figure out, I was trying to tell a story at the time with Under Blackpool Lights. I had this idea about it being layers. If you saw, there's like the elephant's like underneath all the sediment and rocks of Blackpool, and then inside there are all these clear plastic imagery that you could put together to make one image, pull them apart, and have 3 separate images. And we use those images for the posters they made for the theatrical exhibition of it. But yeah, no, I do. When it's a package, I realize it's a bigger canvas. I can tell a longer story or a deeper story. So yeah, when I realized that option existed for packaging, I was quite eager to jump into it. And then I don't know if I can remember what happened after that. Seems like I was just getting more work, and about that time, I was starting to do stuff for Alamo Drafthouse as well. That was right around 2004, 2005.
Yeah. So you continued working with the White Stripes. You ultimately got a Grammy in 2011 for the work that you did on Under Great White Northern Lights, that box set that you and Jack got a Grammy for. What was it like working on that project? Like, did you know at the time that was going to be such like an important thing?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just hearing the description of the tour. To have a band hit every province and territory, not even, Canadian bands do that. Like, I think Rush did it, and that's about it. The most Canadian band in the world did it, and after that, the Canadians are like, ugh, there's a lot of time in the truck to get up to none of it. Jeez. But they did it, and it was just such an interesting tour, such an interesting, I think, experience, and such an interesting love letter to Canada, which makes sense for two Detroiters. That Canada's right over the river for you. So they, if you remember, they were doing like side concerts every day too. And you didn't know where it was going to be. They may be on a bus, they might be in a bowling alley, it might be Jack and Meg on a boat, just driving by all these people on a pier. It was
amazing.
Such a crazy thing. So of course, anything to do with that tour, any documentation was going to be a big deal. The photography, Autumn DeWald's book was amazing. That was the first time I really saw what it takes to be a photographer too. Like we were the day-to-day manager, Tiffany Steffens, and I were like looking at it, and we're like, gee, wish there's like more pictures of Jack and Meg here. And then we asked, could we see all the photos you took? She's like, oh, you want to get involved? Sure. And she sent them all out, and we're looking at all of them. I was like, oh my God, this is a huge mountain of. And I realized the same thing that she was doing the same thing I was trying to do, which was tell a story. And I actually called and I apologized. I was like, I'm so sorry. We even doubted. I looked at everything. I totally get what you're trying to do. So did Tiff. Not going to bring up anything again. This is perfect. I understand it now. Apologies. I just I'd never seen how a photography book gets put together before. About just such a mountainous task to take there's so many photos. Every couple of years I'll still like maybe go through them just to remind myself of it.
And so how did the nomination process work for that? Did someone submit the project to the Academy for consideration, or like how does that all work?
I will say I normally don't do this because I never think would be possible to win. But for that project, I talked to Tiff. I was like, we got to be sure this gets submitted for a Grammy. I think this could actually win.
Nice.
And then I did some of that, the secret stuff. I wrote out on notebook paper. I'm like, you're going to win. You're going to win it this 20 times. Cause I really think this is going to have a shot. Cause I don't know. Again, as far as telling a story, it was a way I thought it was interesting how we were able to tell the same story of the White Stripes, but with completely different characters, completely different imagery, not using imagery from the actual tour. That was all, that's what Autumn was doing. So it would be odd to just duplicate that completely. And it got in, went there. As soon as they said my name, I was determined to run to the stage. So I don't want to take up everyone's time. Everyone else is sauntering up there.
You literally sprinted to the stage.
Yeah. I thought I was on Price is Right. I could not believe I wasn't winded. It was, me, dude. That's back when I was like a huge smoker too. So it's amazing. I didn't go up there wheezing, but.
Were you actually prepared to like do an acceptance speech and everything? Did you have that instinct that you might win?
You know how it goes. You might draw out, I'm going to win. But if you think you actually are going to win, then it doesn't happen. So if I knew if I prepared a speech, then yeah, that'd be jinxing it. So I did not. Just assume you're not going to win. So it's sad. But then I did, and I was like, oh goodness, I'll just make something up on the spot. And that thing I made up, I forgot to thank my wife. So my advice to anyone is prepare a speech. Just
that includes
points.
Your wife.
Yeah, just names.
So, around that same time, or maybe a little bit before, the White Stripes broke up. And Jack obviously went on to do other things, including his own solo work. So did you think you were out of a job at that point? Or did you already have kind of an in with Jack that you knew that you continued to work together?
Well, at that time, again, my day job was Mondo. So anything I did for Jack's bands and stuff was, side gig stuff.
Sure.
But no, when it happened, I'll tell you exactly when it happened. It's 2007, I think. But Florian Bertmer had put up this crazy Ouija board. It was the most demonic looking thing you've ever seen. The planchette was like a upside down, goat headed crucified Jesus. It was just horrifying, covered in sigils from old Black Mass books and stuff. And we thought it was Jane and I thought it was amazing. We had it in the house, and bad things started happening immediately.
Oh, wow.
So that first week, the car blew up. We had taken in to get the oil change. They didn't put new oil in, and the engine just destroyed itself.
Just seized
on the road. Yeah. We actually had to, they didn't believe it. We had to have them pull up their videotape to show that they didn't put any oil in. And even then they made us sign a little paper that said, hey, we'll get you a new engine. So my car has secretly 30,000 more miles on it than it should, or, available to it. But they put it in, they said, you can never sue for this again. Anyway, that happened. My computer also finally blew up. That was my first big computer purchase. And now I had a blown up car, a blown up computer. I had an element from high school that reappeared. And then also that news that the White Stripes apparently broke up. I was like, I'm getting this Ouija board out of here. This has been a terrible week. This all happened when you came in here. Gave it to my buddy Dustin Slater. Dustin does not believe any of that. So, of course, it doesn't affect him at all.
So, talking about the different projects that you do for Jack, or for, the different bands that he's participated in over the years, I really love the consistent color themes that have been established for each band. Mm-hmm. For the White Stripes, obviously it was red, white, and black. His solo work, it's all blue, it's all shades of blue. Like, how did that color theming originally come about? Was that like your decision? Is it something Jack predefined, or how did that? All that is Jack. That's something you'd have to ask him. I couldn't give you a great answer. I just know he's like things color coded, and honestly, I think it worked so well with the White Stripes. He's like, well, let's keep this up. Yeah. How specific is he about the colors though? Like, does he say this exact shade of blue like a branding guideline? Sometimes. For the first album, yes, he sent 2 images. One was of a guitar, and the other was of a cake, and they both had the same kind of that weird blunderbuss blue on it. And he goes, this is the blue I want some to match to this. He never says a Pantone. It's always like, even for White Stripes, it's like Coke can red. And the beauty of that is you can call up the joint and go, hey, just go out and buy a can of Coke. Make sure it looks like that. Hey, did you do that? Because it's looking orange. Sorry, we tried. But he'll get specific. And then I think on Boarding House Reach, that's when it went to electric blue. He had a lot more, I think he was just doing, most of the songs were singing about electricity as well. So I think it was just pumping that aspect of his identity. And so does that color theming extend to all the artists that do posters for all the shows, or is it just contained to albums and the work that you do? I do not supervise a poster series anymore, but when I did, I would tell them, here's the blue. If you want to use different blues, sure. If you really want to be that person that goes, can I make a Jack White poster with red on it? Go ahead, but it's probably not going to get approved. That did not stop Chris Everhart, who actually is the only person who's managed to make that happen. I've tried too. And Alan Hines tried. Alan Hines had a great reasoning for it, and both of us got shut down. But Chris, he's done that twice. He did that once with red on a Jack White poster, and a second time with using Masonic imagery, which used to be verboten. Like Jack would say, I don't want have Masonic stuff. People think I'm a weird Mason anyway, so right. Let's leave this off. And then by the time the Masonic Temple in Detroit became like the Jack White Theater, I think he got less worried about it. And Chris submitted this really amazing 33-degree Masonic triple-headed eagle. And I was like, I gave him a warning. I was like, he's probably going to say no to this. Oh, he said yes. Wow, surprise. So how did you become the guy that organized the poster series? I mean, it's one thing to do the art and create a lot of the art yourself, but then actually organizing the series of other artists seems like a different muscle to flex. How did you become that guy? I was doing all the posters. I mean, I was really doing all of them. I mean, I remember those early years, I was making like 30 to 50 posters per tour, which looking back, crazy. Yeah, because I had a day job. That was insane. Yeah. I would not, ask Jenny, I would be days where I would just, it's like 4 or 5 hours, and then I would just pull myself off the freaking bed and just get back into it. Just, I don't know, it sucked. But as far as organizing it, the main thing was I thought if eventually we got to the point where the posters were popular enough that Jack was like, hey, he wrote to me and Amber, the merch manager, and said, we should do a poster for every show, every date. Doesn't matter if it's in Timbuktu, we should make a poster for it. Show everyone that every date's important.
because it's looking for him. It was looking weird that like, why do some shows get posters and other shows get posters? It's like saying those shows aren't important enough. And he was like, we need to make them for everybody. And Amber's like, great. Sounds like it's going to be a lot more. And I was like, yeah, I can't do all of them. But I said, I'll put it together. And the main reason was so I could make sure that I got, good dates. So, and eventually, here's what's weird. Eventually, then I got guilty. So I would give people like the Los Angeles dates and I would take something like, Latvia, because I want to make sure we had a shot. Ugh.
So is there an art to lining up artists to dates? Like, is there something that like a lot of thought that went into those decisions, or was it just people's availability and how those dates lined up?
Part of it is that in the early days, Jack was not that into illustrators. I think the reason he liked my work so much was it was so hard photography based. And that was only because I had to make 30 posters. I couldn't, that was the quickest way to do them. And then what opened it up was Tomer Hanuka. He did this illustration of Jack and Meg for Spin magazine during Nicky Thump era. And Jack's like, wow, he made me look really cool. You can get this. If you can get this guy to draw me, sure, this guy can draw. So not only that, but Tomer ended up doing a whole collection of singles, just redrawing the covers because of that Spin illustration. But the point is, eventually Jack opened up more to certain illustrators. You'd have to, show and see if you'd be into it. So some folks, it would be, I tried to arrange it. So I tried to get a lot of dates or artists that would be by the state of the show. So Jay Ryan, that's why you'd always get Chicago shows. I knew Jay would do a good job. That was someone that Jack liked his illustrations, and he could do his own printing. So he could just drive them to the show. It saves the touring company shipping money. So that was the main goal, was just try to see what's the most economical way of pulling the tour series off, where it's a poster per show, and just the most less headachy way. So having artists in the state that does it. Otherwise, I don't know. It's just basically folks that I knew, folks that I thought would. I had helped if people were obviously big fans of Jack and White Stripes, so that's why Slater was such a prominent part of it early on, and then later on Chris Everhart. In fact, that was actually probably what made it happen more than anything, honestly, Mike, was having Slater. Because remember, if I was doing 50 posters, Slater was probably doing 20. And same with Chris once we started doing once Dead Weather happened.
And so for, I definitely, there's been a long history, 20-ish years, I guess, that you've done some form of work with Jack. For the other bands that you've done work for over the years that aren't a Jack White project, what kind of criteria do you apply to accepting those types of projects? Is there some like certain type of work you won't do, or do you have to like the band in order to do work for them? What kind of criteria do you apply when you're proposed like a new project?
I'll say there's not been that many. I don't get asked as often as I think people believe. And I think part of that is because, the guy, my looks associated so much with Jack, it's like, getting Derek Riggs to do your heavy metal record. It'd look weird because it's like, this Iron Maiden guy? It feels wrong that he's on a Judas Priest album.
I mean, I have a Nine Inch Nails poster from you, so I know you do other bands.
I'll tell you what, if it's Austin City Limits, I say yes no matter what.
Okay.
Because it's such a great show. It's such a great institution for Austin, and it's going to be a performance everyone will be familiar with and will want that poster. That really helps. But otherwise, no. If someone asks if it's good music, I'll do it if the money's right. Yeah. But maybe early on, I had some concerns about the style of music, i.e., if it was too hippie. But as I've gotten older and becoming slowly more of a hippie myself, I'm like, oh yeah, sure. What's that being? I can't believe I was being so judgmental on music that essentially just wanted people to have a good time.
Right.
Yeah.
How much do you have to know about the band to feel like you've done a good job on something for them?
I guess if it's met well by fans, that's how I know if I did a good job. I did a lot of posters early on for Avett Brothers. Not a lot, like 4 or 5, but I did one that was for their song "The Tin Man," and it had this famous Depression era photo of it's called I think it's called Migrant Mother. It's this woman holding her baby, and you can tell things aren't going well. And I have a Tin Man walking on top, completely oblivious to what's going on. That did not go over well with fans, and I felt terrible. So I actually redid the poster. Got another date. I did a different version of the song. I did a different interpretation of the song, how to present it visually, and that poster went over great with fans. That I couldn't stop selling. I could sell 1,000 of those. So I think it's just they ask, and if I maybe have a good idea, I'll do research. I mean, I'll listen to interviews. I'll do all the
okay.
Yeah.
So that helps you get enough information to feel like you're meeting the needs of the fans, at least knowing something about the band.
Also, I know where the band's coming from. I want to know about their origins, if they're where all the members came from. Anything. I mean, for the reason I was so good or adept at doing Jack White stuff was at the time I was reading every interview. I was making because it was part of the job. So there was something that was there on TV. I'd watch it, go into the cement mixer, and then we'll maybe come out later. And I'll admit, actually, for a new band, you're right. It does. Maybe I don't accept everything as easily as I've said, because you're right. I will know if it's a new band I know nothing about. That's a lot of homework. I might not. It depends on what kind of schedule I have at the time.
Okay. So in addition to posters over the years, you also created a wonderful series of original art pieces centered around Charlie Brown, this Charlie Brown character, which if people aren't aware, you use Charlie Brown as kind of a version of Charlie Brown to represent stories in your own life. So the series was called Grief. The original series was, I think, 100 that were shown at Gallery F in Chicago. How did that all get kicked off, and how did you first kind of establish that series?
It's interesting you bring that up, because I feel weird doing them now. I don't even like, I worried that was when I was younger and just wanted to complain all the time. And it comes off to me a little bit like that. There's a guy that came to that first show and screamed his critique of it all. It was not a positive critique. And then stormed out, and that's always stuck with me. I was like, yeah, he's probably kind of right. I won't tell you what the critique was. It was kind of foul, but he was actually probably on the money. If I was going to do them again or do another show, actually, I'd have a different approach. Off the top, I'd probably want to do stuff that's more like, this word I think gets overused too much, but things that I'm like actually thankful for. I'd probably do like pink colored sheets and just draw. Charlie Brown going, ugh. Because at the end of the day, it could be worse.
Sure. So how did that get started? How did you connect with? Was it Zissou that you?
Yeah, Zissou came up to me at Flatstock and he's like, "Hey, would you like to do a show?" And I was like, "Let me think about it." And then later on that Flatstock, I found him again, and I said, "I have an idea for a show. It will not make you any money. If you're interested, I'll do it." And he goes, "Yes." And I was like, "Awesome." And being able to say that just allowed anything to happen. Just knowing that I didn't have that obligation, that this had to absolutely succeed. It's just my stuff, me talking about myself. And originally the idea I pitched was just a whole show about dead pets. He agreed to that. So trust me, he was thrilled when I was like, instead I think about just doing a lot of Charlie Browns. Oh, great. Thank you. We'll probably do a little bit better at that than your dead pet parade. But the idea was I was going to get a lot of artists to come in and basically just do interpretations of their own experiences with losing animals in their youth. I still did it. It was still part of the Grief show from my own experiences. But I said 100 because it sounded like a good number. Edmiston, I've seen him wreck his own life doing the same kind of thing. He's like, you got it. If it's not 100, who's going to care? The difference is I'm drawing Charlie Brown with a pen. He's got to paint 100 eye portraits. Anyway, so that Zissou, the only concession was he was like, can we make some of these into prints just so we can make something off this? I was like, you bet. And then had the show in Chicago, and it was I was surprised there was a line. I was quite happy people showed up.
Yeah. I really love how thoughtful they are. I mean, the way that you kind of integrate your own story into the Charlie Brown, like as an avatar. What do you I guess, find so right about Charlie Brown as a character to represent yourself?
I tell you, it was weird. When I was a kid, I didn't read much. Peanuts wasn't my thing. It was Beetle Bailey. I really loved Beetle Bailey. Why? He was lazy and sleeping all the time. And then people were constantly just wrecking his world. Sarge was beating the crap out of me. I obviously got bullied a lot in school. But, Charlie Brown happened. I don't know if I ever even told her this. I always meant to make it a big presentation. But my cousin Sue Callahan, she gave me this. It's like this little library of Charlie Brown books. It's common to find. There are like 5 of them. You pull them out, and it's half one book. You flip it over, and it's supposed to be another book. So it has 2 covers. Anyway, she got that for me right about when I was starting to go hard into posters, and I hadn't read Charles Schulz in so long, and I just forgot exactly how, for lack of a better word, mature it was. How adult it's just tiny adults talking about how, the misery of life. And it really just struck me. I don't know, that collection of books. And I ended up drawing a lot of weird Charlie Browns on the backs of, handbills or whatever I was sending out to customers. In fact, that's how I got off the Dead Pet initiative for the original idea for the show. Was Mitch Putnam was like, you should do all those Charlie Browns. You keep sending it to people. People like those. Here's a tip, Rob. The stuff that people respond to, more of that.
Right.
And the problem is, if you got a punk rock worm in your brain, you're like, people like this, I'm doing something wrong.
Right.
Makes something even worse. But I listened and, did really well. It was hard. I'll admit some of those were some tough things to revisit and try to make them accessible, I guess, without being just too depressing. But
and the one thing that always fascinated me is they always have such incredible, you always tell such incredible backstories. There's like an enormous amount of depth in the stories behind all of them. Several of them you've posted on your Instagram or just conversations that you have with people at conventions. Have you ever considered like writing any of those stories down, like in a written form? Or are these drawings kind of, was your way of telling your stories?
I thought about doing both side by side. But it would require an enormous amount of writing. And I'll be honest with you, I don't like writing so much. I know I'm very good at it, but the problem is there's just so many places you can absolutely see mistakes. Whereas with art, you can't tell. Maybe it was intended, who knows? But if you use the wrong its versus its, then yeah, you'll get
right.
And I do that. I got an English degree. I'm supposed to be good at this, and I'm still making that mistake. Crazy. But I thought about it. If it's something I ever do, it'd be something I do like probably in the future when I can rest.
So you think there might be more, but just a little bit more of a positive slant?
I'd like to do it. If that would be a different book, I think one would be Grief. I think that would be called Good Grief, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be the pink ones. But I'd want the Grief ones to just be all the yellow ones. Yellow is supposed to be the color of just sadness, and that the color of death. If you're familiar with, giallos in Italy, the film genre of. If you've seen the film genre where it's a guy wearing like a black glove and he's got a razor blade, and oh no, watch out, ladies!
No, I haven't seen
and
that.
Okay, well that's called. It's a genre called giallo, and basically the whole movie is spent with who's the killer. You know what it is? It's a genre that's essentially a Law and Order. You spend most of the movie guessing different red herrings. You're like, oh, I bet it was the boyfriend, and then it's the boyfriend, or the doctor, whoever. They were called giallo because they were based off these pulp novels they used to sell in France, and they would just have yellow covers, and that's how you knew it was like going to be like a murdery one. And the book title, the book cover, just applied to the films that they were based them off of later. Yellow is always used as a color of something going on, either sickness or decadence. It's rarely a color that's pure happiness. Only time I can even think offhand of that would be Daffodils or Judy Garland's funeral. I don't know, honestly, Liza Minnelli apparently told everyone to come to wear yellow. She said that was her mom's favorite color, and she wanted people to be happy. And they covered her casket with like yellow roses or daffodils or something. But yeah, it's an important color. It's a color with a lot of story behind it.
Yeah. Do you like, or do you wish you had more time to spend on your own personal work? Like, do you wish that that's something you put more of your time into?
Of course. I wish I could do art all day. I have, again, happened at Mondo. It's been happening here at my current job. Spend a lot of time helping other people make their art more than I can make my own. So I don't hear anyone really complaining that much. There's not enough more of this stuff out there. So I think it is what it is. If I get some time, when I retire, maybe that'll be the time, or maybe by that time I'll just be so sick of it I won't do it. Who knows? I will say this: if you have an idea, anything you want to pursue, don't put it off. It'll never happen. So when I do have, like, maybe once in a while I'll have an idea for a piece, I might do it and just put it away. People don't want to see it. There's still like a lot of even Hedoras I've never posted. That was like during COVID, during lockdown. Yeah, like that was my version of losing my shit. Was just drawing Hedora every day. God, I'd never seen the movie before. I'd never even seen a Godzilla movie before. Only one I had seen was the Bryan Cranston one. And suddenly I was like, God, I'm finally seeing what everyone's talking about, since I'm directing all these posters for this franchise. And that Godzilla versus Hedorah, my God, it's just such a amazingly perfect, weird movie. I can't believe it got made. All the other Godzilla movies are, high and low, but that one's something special.
So shifting gears a bit, I did want to talk to you about Mondo, kind of the early days of getting started, and then also what's happened more recently. And so starting in 2004, I believe it's first kicked off. I saw a couple different dates, but 2004 seemed to be the most consistent one. Not long after you had really started doing work with the White Stripes, actually.
Trust me, that helped.
Really? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
It started as Mondo Tees, with you and Tim from Alamo Drafthouse here in Austin, where you obviously served as creative director for almost 20 years. How did that originally start as like a t-shirt shop with Tim?
Yep, that was just Tim. That was Tim wanting to have if I have to guess, I'm sure Tim, like me, a child of the 70s, probably saw T-shirts Plus and all the balls when he was a kid and wanted to get like those cool press-on T-shirts, because that was just like, that was the only shirts you could get for licensed, like, franchise stuff at the time. I felt like if you want to Return of the Jedi shirt, it's going to be a tss.
Yeah.
And they sucked too, because remember they would just tear apart like within 5 washings,
crack and everything.
So he bought like a whole box of these things in Canada and wanted to use them for a T-shirt shop. Because if you go to flea markets, every once in a while, someone will find some in the back of a truck, and all of a sudden you have like a whole mid box of Hardy Boys Arnons from like 1975. So he thought this might be a fun thing. Also, the theater, I think, of seeing your shirt being made in front of you with that big press also kind of helps. And putting it, holding it. So he did that, and then at the same time, they were also doing a few posters every once in a while, screen prints. So it wasn't me. I wasn't the first one going, hey, screen printed movie posters. It was actually League doing a few of those for important screenings, including one for Evil Dead that he did himself. He still had the screens down in the basement. But those posters, I looked at them, and they were very, for lack of a better term, really full of a lot of information. They felt like a ladies' night kind of flyers,
Okay.
Where it's like telling you how much the well drinks are and all this kind of stuff. It seemed it seemed really dense.
Yeah. And
I figured if you could maybe do this more as a gig poster style, where it's more art and less information, then maybe you could have an effect. So that was the pitch. The first pitch came when they had the Quentin Tarantino Film Festival.
Okay.
QT5. I had to wait in line for that every day to get a good seat. Jenny and I were like trying to you'd wait for like 3 or 4 hours until the theater opened. So you're just with this line of people just sitting on the steps uncomfortably. And I was like, I'm not doing this for the next one. My God. So I had to talk. I was like, for QT5, we're just selling coffee mugs and one 11x17 poster that it was printed really strange. I'm not going to decry the design, but it was like yellow and gray or something. You could barely tell it was something that was on paper. I said, so the next time they announced QT6, I approached Tim and I said, you should make 6 posters. I'll help you. I can put this together. And it did. And that was what's really important about that first Tarantino thing was that was the first time I worked with Tyler Stout.
Oh, nice.
And what happened was we made a regular version of the poster, but we also made a color variant just of Tyler's. No one else had one. No one else really seemed like they would have made a difference in the presentation. But for Tyler, there's a pink one and there was a blue one. The pink one we charged $100, which we thought was insane at that time. Remember, we're still charging $25, $35 for these posters. And they sold out first night, like within the first hour.
Nice.
The expensive ones. And that's Tim and I both were like, yeah, I think there might be something here.
You had something, yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So it started because you didn't want to wait in line for Quentin Tarantino.
Oh, that QT6 is perfect because Tim Doyle was running Mondo Tees at the time. So Tim was in the theater. And this is still just the Colorado Street Theater. It's just flight of stairs up, one flight of stairs to a one-screen theater and a little pass-through for beer and fries. So I'd see Tim Doyle. I was like, hey, here are those posters for he's like, yeah, come on up. I'm like, oh, should I go get back in line? He's like, what? No, you're here. I'm like, oh, how perfect. Thank you. I'll just take a seat, not on the stairs. And a lot of it was just kind of that. I didn't take, even for the first 2 years, I didn't take any money. Like Mitch got paid before I did. I
really
got there to bring Mitch on, yeah. But my thing was I knew it was a nascent thing. Was emerging. I wanted to be able to grow. And I know if they had to pay me on top, that would probably not seem like something that Tim would want to engage in, because it was a lot. So the a little bit after that, I called him up. I kept bothering him so much. He said, just get in touch with Tim Doyle. If he wants to make posters, then y'all make posters together. I was like, sounds great. Called Tim. We did it. And then after Tim's like, I'm tired of doing all this work and not making the money. I'm going to start this myself. I and Justin thought about all doing it together on going away from Alamo and doing it. And I felt I couldn't do that to Tim. So I was like, I'm sorry. I just don't think I can do this. And Justin had second thoughts too, I think, on that route. And so he started Nakatomi, and then that's right when Mondo started making sure everything was officially licensed. We had a few licenses at that point, but it started in earnest once Nakatomi was established.
Okay.
Because there's already too much attention on it. Studios were looking; they were saying, "Hey, what the hell is this?" They had never seen marketing like this before. For them, It's just give away an 11x17 thin, crappy poster at a screening. End of promotional poster story. They'd never seen anything like this. And what were we doing? Honestly, we were doing what Kozik did. We were beating the majors. They were embarrassed that their stuff looked like crap and our stuff. I mean, it's still evident today. You go to those studios, you'll see the directors or the producers or the hallways, and they're full of Mondo style posters, not their own studio posters. Kathleen Kennedy has Ollie Moss posters in her office. Denis Villeneuve has Mondo Dune posters in his office. So yeah, it's just basically beating those folks and saying, this, you could do it like this instead of these 11x17 offset crap posters. And over time, and as our relationships with the studios improved, it became like a de facto thing. They saw the value in it.
That time where Tim Doyle split off, you all were considering maybe going away from Alamo and doing your own thing, but ultimately stayed. Is that when it sort of evolved into its own thing and Mitch came on board and all of it grew out of that?
Yeah. What happened was there's also some ideas that Tim would have. And I was like, I felt uncomfortable because I'm not being paid. I'm not really technically an employee, but I'm doing the work. But I still felt like it was his t-shirt shop. So I might not, if he had an artist he wanted to use, I was like, ugh, I might not, my pipe up is hard. So after that came out, I was like, hey, Tim was like, Tim League was like, I'm going to put this guy, Justin Ishmael. He's got a lot of good ideas. I want him to work at Mondo. I said, great, but check this out. I got to be able to, if there's some bad ideas out there, to quash them pretty quickly. So I'll make sure that's understood when he's on board, because I'm stepping up a little bit. I said, I want you to, if you can, we need to also step up our artist game because I'm only know fellow gig poster artists. Anyone else is beyond my, Rolodex. I asked a couple of guys, I asked Todd Slater and Dale Danger for a recommendation of someone who could curate and help pick, higher level artists. And they both said the same name, Mitch Putnam, who I'd never met in my life. And so I called him up and apparently said, he was terrified when he got the email because we'd been talking back and forth already, trying, he'd buy posters from me. But he said he heard how scary my voice was. So I called up and I was like, do you want a job? And he's like, yep. And so I got Tim to hire him. And Tim basically offered him a percentage. That was how he hired. He didn't give him a salary. He said, you can get this percent. And it was a big percent at the time. And after about, I think, another year of that, when Mitch's checks started being bigger than like what Justin was making as his salary, that's when I was like, okay, fellas, y'all can afford to pay me now. Let's go make a case and talk to Tim. That's when I finally got officially hired.
Wow, so you went unpaid for a long time.
I didn't want the baby to die. We were still making a crib.
So once, the baby did get out of its crib and it was its own thing, what was your role as creative director? Like, how much direction did you have to give for a particular project? Was it a lot of back and forth where it's like a more collaboration between you and the artist, or was it more smaller things where, things just need to be adjusted here and there?
Any way it can happen, it happens. Sometimes I might give them the idea, they draw it up. Sometimes they have a fully formed thing and it's done. Sometimes they go, hey, if y'all want if y'all are doing posters for, I don't know, Godzilla versus etc., then here's my pitch. Like, oh, wow. In fact, yeah, let's do it right now. Yeah, we got that license. I mean, that's actually quite a bit, folks, just writing in, saying what they wanted to do. And if they actually did the thing, it kind of actually how I probably kept my relevancy with Jack. I wasn't writing out an idea. I was showing him practically finished ideas, like 80 to 95%. The idea being that it leaves less for the viewer to fill in their own head. They see exactly what you're wanting to do, and they can either go yes or no, or maybe some small notes.
Yeah. You don't rely on their imagination to fill in those gaps.
Because there is dissonance. Whatever you think you're describing, whatever picture you think you're making in their head, I promise you it is not happening.
Right.
And if your picture that you show them is worse than what they had in their head, then you've lost. They'll reject it, or they'll ask for something vaguely unreasonable. That's the other problem. Whatever they have in their head, I promise you, whoever you're pitching this to, if it's a studio person, they're not going to be able to articulate what they have in their head. They just go like, I'm not feeling it. Or maybe something more, I don't know, consequential. What does that mean?
Right.
Can you make it feel a bit more culty? That's actually an extra direction I got one time was,
wow.
Can you make it feel more culty? I delivered 15 roughs. And the guy replied back, ooh. Wait, he actually said, I want you to make it feel culty, real drink the purple Kool-Aid stuff. And I was like, okay. And I sent him 15 designs. He's like, ooh, this is a bit too culty. I'm like, you said drink the purple. There's nothing after that. Right. The cult's done. Once you drink the purple, what do you want? So I actually walked away from that job. I was like, I don't think I can give you what you want. Wow. And that's key too for artists. No joke. Walk away. If you can tell it's going to be a problem, just get out of there.
It's not a good fit.
Well, guess what? He hired Emic, and I saw Emic's solution, and I was like, it totally fit the brief. I was like, wow, he got it. This feels culty, but not too culty. This is actually totally on point.
Amazing. So, do you feel that being, a poster artist yourself helps you be a better art director? Because you kind of speak the same language.
Being a working artist, because you know exactly what they're going through, and you're not someone who's just happened to get this job as a reviewer because you're on your way up within a movie studio. This is, exactly what they're thinking. You know exactly the pressures that are on them. You know not to say something insane like, can you Photoshop this to be whatever? You know how long things take. So I'm judicious with the changes I ask for. I have to really ask myself, is this change I'm asking for worth it? Is it going to improve sales? Or is it just some personal peccadillo of mine that, I don't like pink and green next to each other or something. If it's more the latter, then I shut my mouth and looks great. Or if it's a minor thing that I think will improve it, there's some tension or could be an improvement on the layout, I might offer those, but try to keep as much the artist's original vision as possible.
And, obviously, Mondo ultimately expanded into all sorts of other types of businesses, from records to toys, games, went from being, a t-shirt company to largely a movie poster company, which is, I think, what a lot of people really think of. I guess what motivated these different expansions as they happen? Growing
a business, you have to diversify once, because the whole time we're just terrified, just like everyone used to say in espresso beans, when's it going to pop? So we got to make sure.
Was that present in your mind?
Of course. Mitch and I were Chicken Little the entire time, thinking the sky was going to fall every year, and every year it didn't. Every year it got bigger, every year. Even that year we got fired, it was our best year. We'd sold more posters than we had ever sold before. It was crazy. But for records, it was also that was a bit of a chance. I was collecting. I'm really into Bruce Lee since 7th grade. Not so much the movies, just more the man. I don't know. He just seemed like a good role model for just trying to be perfect at something. And I was going to start buying Bruce Lee soundtracks, and they were expensive. Like crazily expensive. I was blown away. I was not aware soundtracks were worth that much, because usually when you see a soundtrack at your local record store, in the used section, it was Jaws or Poltergeist, and they were like $5. They were like usually nothing, which is funny because now those Jaws soundtracks that were $5 are not. The original issues are worth a lot. So I saw that and I was like, shoot, we should maybe look into this. This could be a really great thing for us to get into. And it's something obviously, we kind of already half know what to do. I'm already making record covers. Mitch actually used to run a small label, Sweat Lodge Guru. And he was a bit like my dad. He's like, yeah, watch out. This is some really thin profit margins. It's not I don't know if you've looked around, but labels don't tend to last very long. It's a hard thing to do. And while we're doing all this other stuff, it wasn't like we had a huge staff. But thought it would be worth, try. So the first record was Maniac. We only did 500 because we didn't think we'd be able to sell 500 in a month. And we did that. We had some variant inside that couldn't purchase. You had to randomly get the pink. We wanted it to be a blood swirl variant, and it came out pink. And we're like, what are you going to do? So we put it in there. And then, no joke, it sold out within, a couple of days. Wow. It was crazy. And in fact, we were trying to save every penny on that. Did not have a gatefold, didn't have an insert. Even that nickel, we were just like, God, let's just try to keep this as efficient as possible. As soon as that sold out, the next one was Beyond. And I told Mitch, I was like, look, I'm doing gatefold and I'm doing an insert. I'm making this nice. We can bear it. We can make 1,000 of these and sell out pretty easy.
I guess in retrospect, do you still feel that it was the right move to expand in all these ways? Would you have done anything differently, considering, do you ever wish it had just stayed movie posters?
Oh God, no. Whenever I met Brock and Mikey and Hector, that's half the fun right there. The toy expansion, that was that was Justin pushing that. That was not me. The weird thing is I collected toys like crazy, but I felt like everything I wanted was either already made or, I don't know. I had yet to get into Sofubi in a hard way at that point. I really didn't know the possibilities, really, I think. And Justin, I think, just wanted to do wrestling stuff. At the time, his goal was to make really nice 6-scale wrestling figures. You didn't have them out there. They're always kind of cheap or a little bit crappy, but he thought if he actually had sideshow level, junkyard dogs, people will go, oh my goodness. So I'm totally glad that happened. Glad we made Tiki mugs. I'm glad we made a bunch of weird t-shirts. I'm glad we had Mondo cons. I mean, everything, you're not aware of it when it's happening, but yeah, those were really good years.
Yeah.
We complained about, the entire time, but looking back, yeah, it was a great Thanksgiving. Let's put it that way.
So, obviously with the onset of COVID, a lot of the live events, stuff that were part of your calendars, the Mondo cons, all the festival or the conventions, gallery shows all had to shut down. And I think ultimately forcing a lot of layoffs just across the board for both Alamo and for Mondo. And then I think it was the summer of last year that Funko ultimately acquired Mondo from Alamo. I think that's the right time frame. Were you involved in like those conversations with Tim and Funko, or were you part of that at all?
Here's what happened. This is a story I have not shared. I will share it. It was not going well. Here's the deal. COVID happened, lockdown happened, and Alamo was just scrambling, trying to figure what can we do. And what can they do? It's a theater company. It's a theater chain, and suddenly they're not allowed to do business. The only part of the business that was almost like allowed to make money was Mondo. So when everyone else is like pretending they were going to learn French or Japanese during lockdown, we were all just wearing our fingers down to bones trying to just, save the patient, so to speak. But it didn't matter because it's a huge theater chain. No matter how many posters, records, even if they're all just the top ones, my goodness, you can't make enough penicillin for a body that big.
Yeah.
So it just basically wore us all down. Until eventually we got to the point where it didn't matter. I didn't care anymore. None else did either. We were going to just walk away. And that came to that point. They were trying to sell because at the gate got down initially. They tried to hold the layoffs as far as possible, as long as possible. If you remember, Tim and Carrie emptied out the emergency fund for employees immediately. It was $1 million or something, or two. I can't remember how much it was, but basically just trying to as a bridge for everybody. But at that point, we didn't think it was going to be a year, much less 2 years. So eventually, they had to start laying people off. And what sucked was we still had the same amount of work, more. So it just got harder and harder and harder. And then there was a point where I won't give the exact ins and outs, but we all quit. I actually got up with. Are you familiar with the TV show Buck Rogers?
I've heard of it, but never seen it.
There was this robot on it called Tweaky, voiced by Mel Blanc. And it was like the comedy relief of the show. It was just this dumb robot. And he had this professor robot on his chest. It's almost like a big medallion. And that was like the AI brilliant, advisor to Buck and everyone else. They had a question to answer, this professor, whatever this guy would answer. When we had a MondoCon, Chris Bellheimer illustrated myself as Tweaky, and he illustrated Mitch as this AI professor thing in the circle. The reason I'm saying this is, the day we went to quit, it was me and everyone there. It was me, Mo, Rank, and Eric, and we walked in, and Mitch wanted to be there too. He couldn't, so I had my iPhone on, and I had Mitch called up, and I had him on speaker so he could hear it, and I was holding it up to my chest so it wasn't intrusive. But I realized as I was saying my stuff, oh my God, I became Tweaky. Got Mitch hanging here from my neck. But then we came in, we saw the guy that was in charge of trying to sell Mondo to someone, to all the interested parties, and we're like, yeah, we got to go. And he's like, ooh, okay. Anything I can do to change your mind about that? And we're like, I don't think so. I think we're all kind of determined. I think man, it's been rough. He's like, I know, but I think things we're about to turn the corner. I'm like, yeah, we're going to help you set you up for success, but I just don't think we can do this anymore. It's been a pleasure working with you. We shook his hand, and we all had banh mi's at a local sandwich shop. And here's what happened. They said, hey, Tim League actually contacted us. And he's like, look, we're going to have a pitch from Funko, Brian Mariotti. We really want y'all to listen to this pitch. And if you don't like it, then fine, you can stay quit. But we just would really like you to hear this. And if we really think this is a good fit, it's a way of keeping all of Mondo together at once. A lot of the people that were looking to buy Mondo wanted one part. Maybe they wanted the record part. Maybe they only wanted the toy part. Or just become a weird poster joint. So Funko came in, Brian made a big pitch, and we all kind of sequestered off. And I remember Spencer Hickman said it best. He was like, if only 80% of that is true. Because we know how it's corporate. There's going to obviously be some changes we're not going to be happy with, but you gotta take the good, the bad with the good. But we're expecting something, not great to happen, but it just seemed like there's so much opportunity there immediately to do stuff, just to do wild, crazy things. And we're like, you know what? Let's take a shot. We're already going to walk away. So it could be a really fun, 2 years, year and a half, at least how much runway they give us. Well, they gave us 7 months.
Right.
But in all honesty, I don't think Funko planned what they did. Obviously, if that was the plan, what an awful plan. I think what happened was they had a lot of big ideas. Things are going towards the moon. And I honestly believe they really did want to do all the things Brian wanted to do all the things he said he wanted to do. But unfortunately, the stock took a tumble. And that led to a lot of folks having to make decisions. And honestly, when the layoffs happened, it was mostly Mondo folks. But if I was him, as a choice between the people that have been with me forever and this joint I just bought 7 months ago, I can get it.
So was it as big of a surprise to you when it happened as it was the community?
Oh God, I'd never been fired before.
Right.
I was Mitch and I. We got told we had these. Mitch didn't have one yet. I got asked to have a meeting with HR in the morning.
Uh-oh.
I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah, that's not a good sign.
I was like, what do you think? I mean, is this making fun? He's like, I don't know. Maybe we were trying to think of anything else it could possibly be besides that. And nope, it was exactly what we thought it was going to be. So what they did when they fired us, they fired my boss first, like the hour before me, and then Jason, and then they fired me. When I got in, I saw the two folks on the Zoom call, and I was like, how you doing? I'm like, I'm a little bit nervous here. It's kind of a weird morning call. And their faces kind of dropped like, and I was like, oh no. Once I saw their face drop, they realized I didn't know it was coming. I was like, oh, it's coming. Shoot. And so they started a little spiel of, we really value what, I was like, I just to cut this short. I know this is not a great thing for y'all. And y'all apparently got a lot of this to do today. So we can go right to the end if you like, if it makes it easier. I go, okay. Is there anything you want to say at this point? And I'm like, is someone recording it? Well, no, I'm fine. You go ahead and put the blindfold on and take your shot. It's all right. So they did that. Then everyone out. Jason and I are the only people who got the privilege of being fired alone. Everyone else got fired in pairs or in 4. Which, if two of the folks are taking it well, like that's going to happen. If one of those people it's the worst day of their life, then it sucks. They have an audience of 3 of their friends having to watch it,
Yeah.
But it was rough. But I don't know. I immediately was like, what were we going to do? We were trying to figure out some sort of plan. And Jenny, my wife, put X-Mondo something on my Instagram page. On the little identifier. And I saw that and I was like, what the hell are you doing? So I said, take it off. She took that off, but I'd already gotten out by that point. So that's when it all kind of exploded on Mondo Trader, people spreading the word. And then it got picked up by Variety. And that's when it went kind of nuts. Variety ran this article and it went huge. Brian then wrote a response. And I think if you've seen Daniel Danger's Brian Mariotti from Funko wrote a response to it, trying to say, hey, because he's still trying to save the business he bought. I mean, I don't blame him. But he's like, hey, we still got a lot of big plans and a lot of things are going to happen. So, sit tight. And then Dale Danger just destroyed this response.
Yeah.
It was brutal. It was practically a piece of art from him. I mean, seriously, just like performance art from Daniel down to accusing Brian of liking Unmasked Kiss era. Favorite Kiss. Which, honestly, by the way, just in support of Unmasked Kiss era, it's good era still.
Yeah, I mean, I think he boothed right next to them too at San Diego or he boothed some
across
convention.
from them. Yeah, because the problem was the year before he thought he was going to be near the Mondo booth. He got his booth and he's like, finally, it's great. And then we had moved all the way across the way to the Funkoville, and he's over there with backpacks and stuff. He's like, geez. So he finally gets his booth moved all the way to where he thinks is going to be the next Mondo booth. And life happened. So what are you going to do? But it apparently went pretty well. He only had a few Funko folks come up going, hey, what's up? And he's like, yeah, I'm they're my friends. I'm sorry. I'm kind of salty about it. They're like, fair enough.
Yeah. Now, it's interesting, though, knowing that now that you guys were going to quit like the year before. So this was almost like...
We didn't want to quit. I mean, we wanted to keep Mondo alive. Mondo was... Right. It was seriously... Mitch summed it up a while back. And it's kind of a warning to everyone, actually. If it's not... Don't wrap your identity up in a corporation or in a company. I mean, we just were... Mondo was just such a big part of, our very fabric. Every time we went outside, we were thinking about how to improve Mondo, what to do for Mondo next.
Yeah.
And it made it very hard to quit, made it very hard to, I don't know. I'm not saying that we were treated terribly the entire time, but it wasn't like, I don't think maybe they knew what they had, so to speak. But part of the reason they were able to do that was because we were obviously going to be there till the end.
Yeah, I mean, when you invest so much of yourself in a thing and then it lets you down, I guess, in a way.
Oh, no. I don't think it let us down. It just, things change.
The circumstances?
Yeah, things change, sometimes, and also even down to all my coworkers, Sometimes you can't have the Beatles aren't going to stick around forever. If they do, it becomes the Ramones, and then what are you doing? You listen to Acid Eaters and, Adios Amigos, where the last record was. I mean, let's be honest, if you don't listen to those last 3 or 4 Ramones records,
right.
Maybe the CJ songs, you're like, CJ's not bad. But you got to be careful. You got to change things up. So in a way, it worked out, I think.
And speaking of, on to more exciting things. Not too long after the layoffs were announced, you and Alan Hines joined Vinyl Me Please. You as executive creative director with Alan as senior creative director, which I think is amazing considering the work that you've done with Jack and Third Man Records over the years, and obviously Mondo as a record label. So how did this opportunity come about, and how did you ultimately join Vinyl Me Please?
They wanted to, remember I was saying earlier that some of those joints wanted to buy Mondo, but only pieces of it. That was one of the joints.
Okay.
They were talking to at the time. Jason, my boss, had left, and my new boss was Jeff Pinsker, and he was basically there to get this place sold. And he after it all, everything went down with Funko and us. He called up and he's like, or he wrote an email, sorry, and he's like, hey. Sorry, I did not think this is what they were going to do, obviously. I know, I really feel terrible. And I was like, dude, honestly, don't feel bad. I gave them the same thing as to you. I don't think this is their intention. I don't think they were lying to you. I think everything just bad circumstances. So please don't feel bad at all. You did exactly what you're supposed to have done. Got the best price for Alamo and got us in a place where we could all still work together. He's like, well, cool. Well, listen, there was a place called V&P that was very interested in the record aspect. And I don't know, the CEO there, Cam Schaefer's a really great guy. I think y'all would click. I think this would be a really great potential place for some people to go to. So I was like, well, great. Give them our emails. And me, Eric, and Mitch actually started talking to them. And then it was such a great result that we asked the other folks to come and listen to what they had to say too. In the end, they wanted to hold out, and I'm 50. They're not. So I'm like, I want to have a place that's kind of established. I want to be in a car that's already built. And those guys, like, we want to build a car. I'm like, I don't know if you remember what it was like building that other car, man, but that was a lot of grease. It seems like these guys got a really amazing car, and they're like, it's like a van. I mean, it's cool. So they're going to hopefully build their car, and then I was like, well, I called up Alan and said, "Did you want to come over here and be in this car?" And he's like, "Yeah, sounds awesome." Oh, one interesting thing about Alan too. Alan got fired too, but they didn't fire the record people.
Oh yeah,
they wanted to keep all the record folks, but they thought Alan was a poster guy for some reason. So it was a bit like that. I've
Did they not even know what their own employee was doing? I mean, is that...
He tried to tell them during the firing. He's like, "Oh, whoa, wait! I think there's a mistake here." It was like that the bit in Brazil when the fly gets caught in the typewriter and there's like a bottle gets taken. So he's like, "This is not my name. Here's right here." Like, sorry, the paperwork it says your posters. So bye. And then later on, they realized, oh, shoot, all the stuff Alan was working on, no one can finish because it's Alan Hines level, origami, intricate kaleidoscope work. So they had to actually pay Alan a pretty princely sum to finish off his last 2 projects.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, is your role going to be similar to what it was as creative director at Mondo, or is it going to be closer to what you have done with your projects at Third Man, or some like combination of those?
Here's what it is. I am actually, despite my best efforts, am building a car. And man, I got to tell you, it is a lot of emails. Not so much art, more emails. And just reaching out and trying to get things to happen. There's a lot of just small things. Normally, I'd have had a staff at Mondo handling that. It's now me or Jen. They also hired Jenny as my production manager. And she's finding out that she is a production manager and a licensing manager. So trying to get that role filled out too. But there's a lot of stuff, a lot of discovery, a lot of grease. But we're hoping that it's going to be humming pretty well, maybe within another 5-6 months. I think things are going to blow up when they see the Tyler's Goonies package. I'm not kidding. It's really nice.
Nice. So the car that you're building now, is that the new soundtrack subscription line? I think that's part of what was announced when you joined, right?
It'll be soundtracks, but there's also slip mats, apparel, posters, tiki mugs, i.e. stuff from Mondo. Basically VMP, but through a Mondo through a VMP lens. It also allows me to elevate things a bit more too. Alan's got some big ideas that hopefully we'll be able to do too. But here's the other thing though. It's not like a broken place hired us, They're already zooming. They're already on their way to now, and people consider them an audiophile label. One of the reasons
I love the quality of their stuff. I mean, incredible.
Right?
I have what's Elton John's Madman Across the Water. I have a handful of stuff from them, and the build quality and like pressing quality, it's incredible.
It's the pressing quality that blows me away. And this is before the plant's operational. I've been shared some proprietary stuff they're going to do for this plant. It's going to sound even better. That's what's crazy. But the thing that really got me into VMP was every review I saw of, unboxings or people comparing. It was a lot of jazz heads going, I've got the original pressing and I've got this pressing of whatever, Thelonious Monk, Sazor Gazbo, or whatever, some weird Polish jazz guitarist. Every person coming up there was saying, I've got both, and the VMP pressing sounds better. The VMP pressing sounds more open. Even for rock stuff like Thin Lizzy, I kept seeing so many people going, that's why I keep talking about this Thin Lizzy record that we put out before I got there. It's an amazing sounding record, and it's also an amazing looking record. Our main art director, Clay Condor, he worked directly with Jim Fitzpatrick.
Nice.
And the Irish artist who did all the Thin Lizzy work in the past. And he's like, the record company didn't let us do this thing back in the day. So if we could do it now, that'd be great. So we were able to actually make it even the packaging itself became a better thing than it was. And again, this is before I'm planting. So they're already humming pretty well. So their hope is that we're just going to add another section to this, a nice trailer to their already beautiful car.
Yeah, that's amazing. So like any upcoming, you mentioned the Goonies project with Tyler. Any other upcoming projects that you're excited for that you can talk about?
I can't talk about them.
Okay.
When is this going to be aired?
The end of around Thanksgiving time. So
good. I can talk about this then. We're releasing Barbie tomorrow.
Okay, nice.
Or on November 1st. As Alan Hines designed this, it is spectacular.
Very cool.
He wanted to make it feel like something escaped from Barbie land, the actual land, like through the rift or wherever the hell is in the movie that they just keep nebulously vague. And I guess I can't give it away since it'll be revealed by that point. It's his handbag, and it's as if Barbie went record shopping. She got her record version. It even has a receipt from the Barbie Boombox record store. It's got all this crazy stuff on the back of the receipt for like Barbie land related services. He's got a driver's license, but it's a goofy, oversized driver's license. That's a picture disc. This is actually a really cool part. He made it so it looked like Ken slipped an autographed picture of himself. And the picture of Ken, it's Ryan Gosling, but it's a flexi disc. And the idea was that we'd only have Ken stuff appear on inferior recording material. So we have a flexi disc and a picture disc featuring Ken stuff.
Amazing. That's incredible.
Oh, it's really
so, I mean, if that's the quality that's going to be coming, I'm excited to see what else you guys do. That's amazing.
Let's be honest. There's only we can only do at most maybe 10 or 11 of those a year because it's only so much.
Sure.
I'm trying to make it so Alan can work on stuff easier. Like the finishing bits at the end that he would get caught up on, like, hey, we got to change out legal 5 times. I'm trying to make sure he's not the person doing that anymore. So it's basically him just being able to bring the idea to as close as where he feels he can hand it off and then have someone just finish it off for him.
Awesome. Anything else that you have coming up that you'd want to put on people's radars? Events, releases?
Nothing I can think of. The Barbie album is going to be great. Oh, I guess I can talk about this. We'll also have a Barbie, we should have a Barbie poster as well by Shar Murugaya.
Oh, nice. Very cool. I'm eager to see what his take is. He always has a very unique perspective.
He did something really cool. He basically tells you the movie, but you don't know if you haven't seen the movie. So and then after you see the movie and you look at the poster again, you're like, oh my God, there's a lot of subtle heartbreak in this. It's sweet at the same time. I don't know. I can't really, again, I'll be dancing about architecture trying to describe it verbally, but it's really poignant. I don't know. We have some other posters too, but there's Charms didn't require likeness, so that's why it's able to go out quicker. Anything else, we've got to put in some work. So we'll see.
That's all work you're familiar with. You've done for years.
Nope,
so.
Well, a little bit, but the thing is, when it's Barbie, I'm a bit worried because it's bigger folks. But actually, Jenny's been doing really well, getting a lot of likeness clearance for other projects, so hopefully things will go the same way. Oh, that's another thing I guess I can talk about. We're going to... Yeah, I'll tease it. Why not? We are going to do something with Greg Ruth and a David Lynch property.
Oh, wow.
That is not Twin Peaks. I'll just say that.
I feel like he's that's a very good pairing. Like I can immediately imagine him doing something well for David Lynch. And I don't know why. I don't know why that is, but
as the only artist that we were told that David Lynch would approve, yes. he's got a real good thing. He's got a real good pairing with David Lynch. In fact, it's weird. Back in Mondo days, we tried to submit that Greg Ruth gallery show, and whoever David Lynch's gatekeeper is like, look, David's just doesn't want to approve any new art or illustrations of this stuff, so we're just not going to even show this to him. So we'll just give your money back if this is what you want to do. We're fine. This is not going to happen. So forget about it. And we're like, geez, at least show it. I mean, at least show Jack White the blue poster with a red in it. He might say, obviously most time, 99 times he's going to say no, but you never know. Well, they know. They're like, we've been told to keep stuff off it. We're trying to keep his inbox free. So things that 99 times we've been told no on, we're just going to not bother with that 100th time. So, go get stuffed. And then a few months later, it was weird. The guy wrote to Tim Weish, our licensing manager at Mondo at the time, and said, hey, Mr. Lynch is really into this artist, Greg Ruth. We don't know if you've heard of him or not, but if you have an idea maybe that involves his artwork, then we're all for it. And Tim just bit his tongue in half and went, yes, I'll have a proposal for you immediately if you like.
Yeah, right.
Or I think he pretended and waited a day. He resent the exact same proposal in, and then it was all approved.
That's amazing. So where can people find you online so they can keep up to date with all these things?
Rob Jones, it's animalrummy.com or more likely vmp.com.
Is there a story behind the Animal Rummy name that you want to share?
I had a squad of folks I used to drink with when I first moved to Austin. Some old high school friends, and then folks that they knew and we knew in town. And we called ourselves Animal Rummy because one day my buddy Joey and I went to this Eckerd's. We saw these like kids games for sale, and one was a deck of cards called Animal. Apparently, it's an ancient card game, but we had never heard that name before. And in our hungover heads, we thought it was the funniest sounding thing we'd ever heard. Like Animal Rummy, and plus we thought it kind of described us because we were like bestial drunks. So next time we had a big meeting at God, it was at the Ritz actually. the old point it used to be a bar. We gave each other Animal Rummy nicknames and formed a charter.
That's amazing. So last question, and this is something that I'd like to ask everybody. Sure. Who is one artist that you'd like to see me have on the show?
Frank Kozin.
Aww.
Let me think. Somebody that would be, I want to think of someone you wouldn't normally get to. You know what I'm saying? You know what? Actually, in light of Frank passing, because I think it would be an interesting interview, considering their history, Coop. I've heard the Mark Maron interview. And you remember, Mark opens it up with, I took all the Kozin posters down, don't worry. And because Coop's a nice dude. I met him once at a MondoCon for a second. But it'd be interesting to hear his thought, just to hear more of his, if maybe it'd be less guarded about his history and Frank's past, and maybe he'd actually have some warm thoughts, which always happen when a funeral goes through. But that'd be the guy I'd say, Coop.
Awesome. Great suggestion. Rob, thanks so much, man, for doing this. It's really been good catching up with you. And, once you get back, we're going to have to hang out sometime.
Yeah. And I'm sorry if I mumbled too much.
So that's it for this episode of Art Affairs. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Rob. It was interesting to hear Rob reflecting on his grief series and how his goals with that kind of story have evolved since he originally made them. He said if he made them today, or if he made more of them, that he'd focus more on the things that he's thankful for, rather than the negative stories from his life. Good grief. Such a great name. I really hope he finds the time to pursue that. The whole series is incredibly thoughtful with an enormous amount of depth. And I guess that's really something that has always impressed me about what Rob creates, regardless of whether it's personal work or client work. There's always so much depth. Even though he works quickly on his poster assignments, like he talked about, he never shortcuts the concept. There's always so much thought put into every part of what he does. We didn't really have a chance to dig into his creative process like I'd wanted to, but I am genuinely curious how he arrives at his ideas for works. He not only puts a lot of himself into the work, but also a ton about the band and the city that the show's in. Connecting all of those different things in a cohesive way is really impressive. So I'd love to know more about how he kind of works through that. It was also interesting to hear his side of Mondo's rise and, recent fall. As someone who also has gone through being laid off before, I can definitely relate with what he and the other folks at Mondo went through. And I didn't even realize that leading up to Funko acquiring them, that everyone was so run down from having to keep afloat in, a post-COVID world, to the point where they were about to just walk out and leave it all behind. Funko sort of delayed that demise, but ultimately let them all go, a half a year later. Definitely a closing of a chapter in his life. And it was, I think, really poignant the way he said, you don't realize as you're living through these times how genuinely good they are, until you're on the other side of it. And that really struck me pretty deeply. But with the closing of a chapter, obviously there's a chance for a new one to open. So it's really cool to see that a new one has already started for him with him joining VMP Records. I've been so impressed by the quality of their releases. Admittedly, I only have a few, but the ones that I have picked up all have such top-notch production, from the pressing to the packaging. So I'm really excited to see what Rob and Alan are able to do with such high-quality releases. That Barbie release sounds incredible. So much detail, so much thought. I'm really impressed by everything that he described. So check out his and Vinyl Me Please's social media to keep up with all these new projects. So thanks again to Rob for joining me today, and thank you for checking out the show. I'm truly grateful for your support. I could not have done this for the last 4 years without all of you. And just a reminder, one big way you could help out if you're really enjoying the show would be to check out the show's Patreon. And shout out to the patrons for supporting me for as long as they have. You can find all the details on patreon.com/artaffairs. As always, you can contact me through my website at artaffairs.podcast.com or on Instagram at artaffairs.podcast. So until next time, be good to yourself and be good to each other.
And the Grammy goes to Rob Jones and Jack White III for Under Great White Northern Lights.
Whoa! I cannot believe I won. That is awesome. It's an honor being out there with Ron Oliver. Wow. I'd like to thank White Stripes and everyone else who helped me out, Mom, Dad, Captain Sensible, and God. There you go.